Y'all may or may not hear some thunder rolling in behind me in a minute, so do my best to mute
I feel
in
like
between.
that's like there's an Imagine Dragons song. It's like thunder and the lightning.
Should be
Now
my that should
thinking
be like
about that.
my theme song now that I'm in Costa Rica.
What's your theme?
I know, I
How you
know.
doing, babe?
I'm okay. I'm okay. Before we started recording, we were talking about just feeling like these eclipses have been rocking it. Oof.
Listen, I don't know anybody who's not like going through a breakup. I mean,
Mm-mm.
like monumental like things are.
Life shifting. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's like every client, they're like last minute books and bookings, and I'm like,
Hmm.
what's going on? And they're like, well, everything. And I'm like, okay, let's roll up our sleeves. Let's get into it. What's going on? But it feels like really big stuff. And it's really big shadow work that's,
Mm.
being asked of us to dive into, I believe right now, all of us.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you say shadow work, like I guess I wasn't thinking about that, but when you said that, I'm
Mhm.
realizing like even some of the people have been reaching out to me or like sending me. Somebody just sent me an article the other day, which I'll show you later, but about the shadow of Carl Jung and like all this stuff about Jung that's like coming out, and I'm like, well, not
Ooh,
really coming out, like,
what did Carl do?
well, his relationship with God, I'm gonna butcher her name, but you remember our friend Carly
Is
reached
it,
out to us a long time ago about doing a documentary about that woman that was involved with Jung a long time ago. Do you remember this?
no, she didn't think she reached out to me.
Her name is Spielrein, and that was her last name. What was her first name? Spielrein.
Mm.
Anyway, so there was this woman. I'm gonna find it because it's gonna piss me off if I don't. Sabrina Spielrein.
Mm.
So basically, Sabrina Spielrein was a patient of Jung, and I think maybe even Freud's, turned sexual relationship with Jung, turned colleague with the both of them. I don't know the trajectory of like what the timing of all of this was.
Mm.
But anyway, somebody had sent it to me and was just asking me what I thought about it, with the whole like Jung having this relationship with this woman, and she was institutionalized apparently when he was having
Mm.
this relationship with her. And so we were just talking about the shadow of it all. And I was like, but this is also like, no one should be pedestalizing Jung. Like, let's all
Mhm.
stop putting these people on pedestals. Like, I can very
Yeah.
much say that Jung's work has been profoundly life changing and instrumental in the way that I view the world. And also, he's still a man,
Mm.
he's still a human, right? He's still inherently flawed. Um, Ethics board were not a thing back then, by the way. They were all sleeping with their clients. Let's be real. I don't care who they were.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. Just this idea of shadow. When you said that, I was thinking, damn, I feel like it's just prevalent everywhere. Like everyone's pulling the covers off of things and being like, "What's under here? What's under here?"
Mm. Oof, that's really interesting. I mean, so many things came up as you were saying that. I first thought I was having was how much we start to dehumanize people when we pedestalize them, right?
Ooh, that
So
part.
the celebrity culture, the my
Hmm.
hero, my guru, the whoever, and then what is required is a lack of humanity. Certainly that person gives themselves grace to have and embody, but that we accept from
Mm.
that person, right? And I think it's really interesting because we were like talking about ego deaths last week, and I think there's a way that there's something in the the cultural zeitgeist and like our collective moment that we're in that I think is really that's the part of the shadow that I think is really coming up for us to look at where we have attempted to make other people our higher power,
Mm.
outsource our sense of security, safety. Like I've had all of these clients, and a big theme right now is some of like it's interesting that it's like the sexual stuff, right? Like
That's
there's a lot
exactly
of
what my mind just went to.
right?
Yep.
There's a lot of like the open relationship stuff and how I've sort of been going along with this to maintain the attachment, but it like I'm in the reckoning of like, is this actually my truth, or is this the thing I'm attempting to be aligned with, even though it doesn't really feel true for me? There's a way that like there's been a few people, I don't want to get into people's names, but like, musicians and people with large platforms that have sort of similar to what you're describing with Young, it's come out that they've had some affairs and things that um just seemed like maybe there was power differentials that were problematic, all these things, right?
Mm.
And I think there's a lot in what you're saying in that It's like Jay-Z says, always have to bring this quote in, but he says, like, when you can look in the mirror, like, there I am and still not see who you become. I know I'm guilty of it too, but not like them. And he's talking about how, like, attention and glorification becomes like the strongest drug, right? And
Mm,
he says it's like stronger than heroin. And I
mm,
think it's really, really true that we aren't meant to be anything other than in our humanity. And certainly, even as therapists, I think
yep.
this is something that we talk about in grad school and, like have supervision around. Like, you are not meant to be anybody's all knowing,
Nope.
whatever. And it's really, really easy for people to want to outsource that to someone else.
Mm. I was thinking about this idea of lack of humanity as you were saying this, because we talk a lot about how we dehumanize others when we are making them bad, when we are making
Mhm.
them, they don't believe what I believe. They're not thinking the way that I'm thinking, and then we'll dehumanize. And we're seeing that obviously happen everywhere right now. But I think we also don't talk a lot about the lack of humanity that's involved in the opposite, which is the putting somebody on a pedestal,
Mhm.
right? And how it's very similar. Either way, you're outsourcing. Either way, you're dehumanizing somebody. And we can see it, to your point, like celebrity culture, musicians, religious leaders, spiritual leaders, people like Jung, who obviously are, powerful or more powerful. But we can also see it in our relationships,
Mhm.
right? And so I was just having a conversation. Well, I've been having a lot of conversations, obviously, because of the book and, a lot of podcasts and stuff. And just the number of times that I've gotten pushback, which is not going to be surprising to you, around this idea of like, what are women doing about it? Oh, it was the Self magazine article that I wrote. And just the amount of women that are like, "Da, da, 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 da," in the comments, right?
What is the da da
Mad
da 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 da?
anger,
I'm like, what are
just
they
like,
saying? I'm
it's always
frustrated.
been shit. Like, if men
Oh,
did this, if men did just the shit that you and I guess, hear and talk about a lot, right?
yeah.
And I'm like, man, I just wish I could shake some people and say, do you not see how much you are still outsourcing your power to them? Like,
Mm.
even by putting them as the bad guy, you're outsourcing your power. It's like, it's just so fascinating how little we want to. I don't know. Like, what do you think the reason is for that? Like, why do we not want to be what's the word I'm looking for? Why do we not want to be the experts of our own lives? Why do we not
Sovereign.
want to be sovereign? Yeah, like what is that, right?
I think it's because with great power comes great responsibility, right? It's that Spider-Man quote. And if like the buck stops with me, then I don't get to sort of deflect from that space of taking my 100% and ownership. And I think so often it can be really difficult to allow ourselves to be in our humanity. I think we dehumanize other people because we dehumanize ourselves. And I believe that I have to be perfect and righteous and always getting it right in order to be worthy of love and in this human experience. But I think the more that I have been able to sort of allow for my imperfection with grace, and perfection is like haha, right, like the furthest thing from, but that I like allow for my humanity, I'm just so much more tolerant of other people's, right? But I don't think that that's a skill we're taught, and I think it comes from, in terms of relationships, we never really, and we still do this. And frankly, clinical psychology and a lot of the work that we do reinforces this. And this is this idea that your parents should have been this omnipresent, all knowing, all seeing, godlike figures that had all the answers and didn't have their own pain and knew how to integrate their pain, right? I was just writing about this. And it continues in our adult relationships. And it's like, I'll be dating some person who I've known a friggin' week, and then they should have had the integrated level of self awareness to understand what their core wounds were and speak to them vulnerably and let me know that they felt overwhelmed instead of ghosting me. And it's like, well, that's a pretty friggin' tall order for like the majority of the population. I'm someone who does a lot of personal development work and has had a lot of therapy. And even for me, those crucial, confronting conversations are really challenging as a human. Like, we all go into our shame. We all go into the little person inside of us that like feels like I just need to defend against feeling small and vulnerable and all of these things. But that's That's the part of us that thought our parents should be like God, and now all the people around me should be perfect and be like God. And until we can really own our own imperfection and that I get to be human as fallible as I am, it's really difficult for us to tolerate that in other people. You know what I mean?
It reminded me of when you were saying that, I was thinking how John, as John does, will like put a camera in my face and be like, let's record a podcast episode. And I'm like, okay. And so we were doing one recently and some emotion came up and we weren't like arguing, but we were definitely like having some, well, it was a little bit of an argument, I guess. But anyway, he put this clip up on his page today and a bunch of people were like commenting about how like, we were both arguing and like it was so obvious that both of us just wanted the other person to listen and we wanted to be heard and seen and how we were both being so defensive and this and that. And I was like, yeah, what's your fucking point? Just because we're both therapists in a relationship, do y'all think that we don't fucking fight and get defensive
Mm,
and have a hard time hearing each other and have a hard time seeing each other? Like, what do you think this is? You know what I mean? Like,
mm,
we're not perfect. Like, we also get defensive, like, oh, did that make you uncomfortable to see something? Because it was like, you guys should be better at X, Y, and Z. Like, you're modeling this and that. And I'm like, are we?
mm,
I feel like we all need to look at the mirror and pay attention to how much we're looking at other people to be models for us for how we should be living. Like, don't put me on a pedestal for the love of God. I did not ask for that. Please.
yeah,
Right. Because if you put me on a pedestal, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to be disappointed. You're
yeah,
going to be disappointed because, like you said, I'm infallible. I'm a human being. I'm imperfect. And I don't want that responsibility. I didn't ask for that responsibility.
yeah. It's interesting. I saw a post this morning that was like, what God, well, I can't think of the name of his book. And he's actually a therapist that I really appreciate the way he speaks into some of the nuance and like, he's a lot more clinical certainly than we are, but the way that he talks about a lot of these concepts I appreciate. And he was saying that the pop psychology and the way that we've just like really made psychotherapy such a normalized aspect of our cultural zeitgeist is really minimizing what therapy is. And it's such an interesting time to me, V, because I think
Mm,
there's a way that, like, if we look at what was historically the role of the clinician was to be that blank slate. Like, you don't
mhm.
see me and like all, like, you don't project all of your stuff on me. And even if you didn't see me as my human self, you would still project stuff on me. Let's be honest, right? Um, but the reason I'm saying this is I think what we are watching in terms of the death of a paradigm is the idea that any sort of external authority knows more than you, is here to
Mhm.
save you. It's so funny. I mean, I guess I'll just say it, like, who cares? But like, Elizabeth Gilbert has this book that's come
Yeah.
out and she's been talking a lot about it. And, I love Elizabeth Gilbert. Let me just give that caveat. She's amazing. I love her so much. And I've been really, really challenged by a lot of the conversations I've heard her having on podcasts, because she's really speaking from like a 12-step perspective in a way that is just not really in alignment with my belief system anymore, in that like there's in that I feel this way, that like certain people are quote normal and certain people are broken and can't drink
Such a
ethanol
codependent
normally.
way to write about somebody else, by the way, or to talk about somebody else. Like this person is broken and this person is normal. I'm like, wonder who
Oh,
got to
well,
decide who was broken.
well, and she's talking about herself
I
in that
know.
she's like now, believes that she's a sex and love addict. And I don't doubt that she is, but I think you and I are sort of in agreement that like all of us are addicts. And as you often
Mhm.
say, one person's Jack and Coke is another person's people pleasing. But I think that what it has been so fascinating to me around is like, Dene, why are you so activated by this?
Mm,
Right. Cause I've felt myself like, don't say that, Liz. Like, what are you saying? And I'm like, oh, Danae, that's your like pedestalization of her. Like, you
mm,
have really like seen her as, and listen, it doesn't mean that she gets to, or that she shouldn't have a perspective that maybe I don't agree with or that's not in alignment. But I think there's a way that what I'm understanding on a collective level is more now than ever. if we put our power in someone else's hands or believe that there is anyone outside of us who knows more than we do, the universe is legitimately directing them to disappoint us so that we understand that our power does not reside there. And it's like the quickening, as we were talking about last time, of that process. It's like, where are you attaching to an idea that anyone is meant to be anything for you so that we can dissolve that illusion as quickly as possible? Like, I'm just watching it be like with all my clients in my own life. It's fascinating. It's like, nope, everybody gets to be human, everybody is going to be human. Get on board with with allowing for the grace of everyone's humanity, and that everybody gets to be where they are in their process. And the more that we feel disappointed by that, it's like, well, where did I have an expectation of who someone was meant to be for me? And that's on me.
Mm. When you were saying that, I was thinking of two examples. I was thinking about how, after the fires in January, so there's this woman. I think I might have mentioned her before, but there's this woman who was lost her stuff in Altadena, and she has started this organization that's really asking for accountability and asking for explanations on how specifically west of Lake, which is the Thoroughway Avenue, right, was basically left to fend for themselves. Like, we weren't evacuated, we didn't get any help, like zero firefighters, like all the things.
Mhm.
And I follow her movement, and I think she's doing hard work. And there's a part of me that really believes in, yeah, we do actually need to have some accountability. I don't think we'll ever get it, because I think all of us actually know what happened, and we know that there'll never be an admittance around what happened. um, but I also think that for me personally, I watch it and I think my biggest, well, not my biggest, but one of my biggest lessons, I suppose, coming out of that experience is that I had this sense of false security, I suppose,
Mhm.
that they would take care of us.
Mhm.
Like, anybody gave two shits in a position of air quote power, that they gave any level of shits about us in any fucking way. And I've always been the person that has said they don't care. Like, I've always been very clear that politicians are politicians are politicians. I don't give a shit what side they're on. None of them give a shit. We have to stop pretending like they're going to come rescue us. We've got to stop putting all this power in their hands. But coming out of that experience, it was just so visceral to be like, enough pretending that they care and that they're going to rescue you, like you individually, but you as a society. Like, y'all need to have systems in place amongst yourselves to take care of you and your neighbors, right? And we saw it happen in Altadena. I mean, a lot of people did, right? But I don't know, that just is like so visceral for me to look around and go, okay, moving forward, what level of connection do I have with my neighbors? Am I on a WhatsApp with everybody? Do we have evacuation plans depending on like where we live in the world? Because right now it might not be fires. Now I'm in Costa Rica, but it's floods, right? So like, I actually have gone out of my way now. Like, I know people's names that own the restaurant across the street. I know where they live. Like, and I don't even know that I was intentionally doing that, or now it's just so in me to be like, I need to know my community so that we can take care of each other, because I'm done with that. Like, I'm done thinking that somebody's going to come and save us?
But to me, that's the larger why.
Mm,
It's less that like someone should be accountable
mhm.
and I need accountability because, to your point, good luck, right?
Good
Like
luck.
if we get into like the whys of that, like welcome to racism, right?
Well,
Like
that's
that
exactly it. They're never going to
there's
admit to the why that we all know is the why, guys. It's not going to happen.
yeah. And so it's like, I love that woman, Jennifer Lewis. I think she's an actress, and they would like
Mm,
ask her, like, how did you get as far as you have in
yes.
Hollywood? And we've had this conversation, but she's like, because I never let me being a Black woman in Hollywood be something that was going to stop me. I like figured out whatever I had to do to create my own tables. And I love
Mm,
that. It's like,
mm,
if I don't have a seat at the table, I'm going to make my own table. I'm going to make my own content. I'm going to like figure out how to get it done. I'm not going to focus on the barriers. And I think it can be very easy to channel our energy into
mm,
what was distorted and shouldn't be. And that will just suck the life force out of us. Or what I think is more productive is what you are saying, which is if all of this happened, what did this have to teach us? And certainly in case of emergency, but also because what kind of a society have we become when we don't know the people that live next door to us? You know what
That's
I
right.
mean?
That's right.
And that's so much of what we have, because it's by design in this society to keep us so separated and insular and disempowered. um, we were always meant to be in tribes, and taking care of one another. What did that just bring up?
Sorry, I just got emotional. I don't know. Ooh, this is what grief does, right? It's funny. It's like you can go months, weeks, everything's fine. And then somebody, or like you say something or you talk about one thing and you're like, oh, there's something there. I mean, this isn't new. I've talked about this, but it's I guess the emotion that it just touched on is just that, like you said, nobody should not know their neighbors, And
You did.
I did. Um, and we did take care of each other, you know? And so I don't know, like maybe that's why there's a part of me that looks at this movement that this woman is organizing, and I'm thinking, um, we did actually take care of each other, and we did have each other's backs, and we did get each other out, literally and figuratively got each other out. Um, and so I'm grateful that there was something in us that pushed for that, and prioritized that, because there were a lot of people that didn't have that. And there's 19, I think 20 now in Altadena alone that lost their lives right in those fires. And um, if only they had had that, you know, because almost everybody that lost their lives was, elderly or disabled, and was calling 911 to get them out, and they left them there. And they never came and got them, and they're the ones that died. And I just think to myself, like, and this is not me blaming their neighbors. Anybody who hears this, please don't hear that. What I'm saying is, I look at my street and I think we had some kind of connection where there was a communication, just making sure that everybody was out on our whole street, And I'm thinking to myself, Jesus, if there was one of those people that lived on my street, it wouldn't have happened. Like they would have gotten out, because we would have made sure that they were leaving when we were leaving, right? Or that their family was in touch or whatever. So I don't know, I guess the emotion just came up around that, like the actual consequences, losing your house is one thing, but the actual consequences of what can happen when you're not connected to your community. Um, it can be that dire, you know.
I saw this thing this morning that said there is no soul that leaves its body at a time that it hasn't determined that it's going to leave this body. And I think our human mind really struggles with that. But I think the expansion of our consciousness is in the understanding that all things are lessons life would have us learn, right? And so it's like none of it is meant to be wasted. And if nothing is promised, then everything is sacred. And we're not promised any time in these bodies, But it becomes, if every moment I have here is sacred, how do I treat the people around me as if they matter? And that is the part of like what this has to teach us. Like, we're not promised that we're going to have neighbors. We're not promised that we're going to be able to take care of one another forever. Like, think of how much you loved the people on your street. I watched you, and that was, a season, a period of your life that you got to have, and that Logan got to have, right? And that John got to have. That it's, yeah, it's just like that is the lesson. Like, we're going to have moments, and then those moments are not ours to grasp onto, like we get to say like, oof, this is teaching me that none of this is something I get to expect, that I get to keep, and I know that like for me being a parent, like I just had this moment today where I like looked at my kid and I just started like crying almost to the point where he was like, what is wrong?
What's going on?
But I just got
Picture him.
hit with like such a like, he's not a baby, I'm gonna
I
cry again,
know.
right?
I
Like, it's
know.
just so uh, it's so sacred, I guess, is what
Yeah.
is bringing up the emotion. We're not promised any of it, um yeah.
does that translate to into like chosen relationships when I guess I'm going back to thinking about the people commenting on the podcast that John and I did. And you think to yourself, like, I feel like one of the questions I get a lot in my clients is, but how do you know when? Like, how do you know when this has run its course? How do you know when the struggle is too much? How do you know when, And I mean, obviously, there's no right answer to that question, but it is about, I don't know. I mean, I think about even like John and I, and like our cycles of as everybody I've ever seen in relationships do, our cycles of pedestalizing each other, our cycles of thinking that this person should heal this wound for me, our cycles of expecting X, Y, and Z from this person. And if they're not doing what I think they should be doing, then I'm disappointed in them, the cycles that I see. And I'm naming this between John and I, but I see this shit in every relationship I've ever seen. By the way, not just romantic, friend relationships, relationship with our children, right? But in those chosen relationships where there is the ability to like walk away from it, the other question I feel like I hear so often is like, well, how do I know when have I learned everything I can learn? And it's like time to walk away,
My dream is for all of us, and I've been thinking about this so much lately, and I was teaching a group in your community yesterday, and I was talking about how I don't want to be a couples therapist anymore.
Welcome.
Well, and the reason I say that is because it just feels out of alignment with my truth, and that I don't believe like the goal is to be in a pair bond, right? I think even I don't know, still, the way that we structure that work and what we're doing and the way that it is thought about is how do we do the work to create more harmony in this pair bond? And I'm so much more in alignment with how do I use this relationship dynamic as my sacred curriculum to teach me what I am meant to understand. And so Tawny, shout out to Tawny if you happen to be listening, but someone in the community, I don't think she would mind me sharing this, but she was like, Dene, I don't see you as a couples therapist. I see you as like a relationship coach therapist. Like you're very much someone who understands the workings of relationships in a way that you like explain things like you're saying, not just like romantic, but like what these relationship dynamics bring up for all of us. I'm saying all this to say, I have just learned so much from not needing things to be black and white with the people in my life, whether it's romantic and it's someone that I'm attracted to. And I would love for this to be more than a friendship, but that's not where the other person is or feels about me or vice versa. And so, do I have to be done with them or we are nothing to one another unless this is a romantic thing? Society would say yes. I have learned so much about like not needing that to be true. I look at my child's father and how much our relationship has developed and is so much more of a beautiful containing space of friendship than it ever was when we were together in a partnership in that way. We're still co-parents and partners in that way, but just allowing the gray and the complexity of our relationship to be, and in a way that society taught us we didn't get to, has been so healing on so many levels. And I think, I watch people, and I was watching Cardi B talking to who's the girl from Destiny's Child, the one with the
Michelle,
short Kelly, with
Kelly.
the
I'm
short
like,
hair.
Michelle, Kelly, who are we talking about?
Yes, and she was talking about a breakup and how she was having like physical withdrawal. She was like, it is worse than like any drug. Like she's like, I like could not eat and I could not like sleep. And I think it is because we really undermine the physiological response that happens within us when we attempt to completely sever an attachment that has been so interwoven in our life. And I think that's why we don't allow relationships to change form, because that brings up so much around our attachment wounding. And so we keep things in the same container, in the same form, when that doesn't have to be the case. And I guess all of this is to say, like, my dream for us is to mature a little bit around the way we hold our relationship dynamics, where it's not, we are either in this partnership forever until we die or you're dead to me. Because right now, that is still very much how we hold it. And to me, there's just so much immaturity in that,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too what's happening is like we are trying to give people voice, give voice to another way, give a blueprint or an idea or a glimmer of how it can be, and yet we're trying to change ourselves in these relationships in a structure, like a
Mm.
societal structure that is still set up to keep us in that way of thinking. We're either
Mm.
together in this forever or you're dead to me, right? Like
Mhm.
society actually maintains that structure, right? So it's not that it's impossible, but I'm also, I guess, like calling out how difficult it is to make these kinds of changes when you live within a society that is like, absolutely not, that's not how we do things, right? And you're actually going to be punished for trying to change the system. You're rewarded for maintaining
Saying it.
this. Yeah. You're
You
actually
mean like
punished for not
the
financially,
economics of it?
societally, all the things, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I just say, like, shout out to all of us that are trying to do this work around changing what relationships can look like because you're not being supported in that
Mm.
change from the top down, you know?
Absolutely. And I think it requires bringing it back to the ego strength to really understand that you're not diminished when someone is not, it's all about that special wound. We all have this special wound. And I was telling you, I've just had so many clients that are around, like struggling around the opening of their relationships and what that is bringing up. And I think a lot of that is like the death of these patriarchal structures of relationships. And yet, as we're trying to fumble around, like, what are other ways we could do this? We're still really butting up against that. I need to be the special one, though. I need
Mm.
to be your one and only special someone because that means something about me and my self worth. And
Oof.
it's so friggin' human. And like the work is, I am not defined by my relationship status with another person. It's just not true. And, you know, people will really be like, that's not a thing that we can do. And that's like where society still tells us that's not possible. And it absolutely is. But a little bit, we always come back to, we don't know how to let things die in their current
Yep.
iteration. So we just keep hanging on like, no, I need to be your someone. And it's like, I think a lot of times I'm seeing we're causing more harm by not allowing things to, go through the life cycle and die as they need to. And say, like, that doesn't mean we have to be dead to each other, that we have to hate each other. But sometimes a relationship has run its course and we're just clinging on to the attachment and really causing one another unnecessary pain, my perspective.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, and this is all going back to what we started with, which is this idea of like dehumanizing people, you know,
Hmm.
because if I believe that my relationship to another person gives me value, it actually doesn't matter who that person is. It's just my relationship with another person, which is the dehumanizing aspect. Like,
Mm.
it's not about my relationship with you, Dene, the individual, John, the individual. It's just the fact that I'm married, right? Like, that's the thing. So you could insert any Joe Schmo into that, and it doesn't really matter, you know?
Yeah.
And so when we say dehumanizing, like, that's what we mean. We're all acting in ways that it's not about you as an individual and them as an individual. It's about, I don't know, checking boxes, creating or and holding on to some semblance of false security and safety, like that word again that I used
Mm.
earlier. And maybe that's like the idea. Maybe this idea of like, where am I using other people and using, yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to work out what I'm wondering, like, maybe I'm using, where am I using other people to attempt to create a false sense of security? Right.
Or sense of self too.
Yeah.
Have you heard about this movie, The Materialists, babe?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen
Oh,
it.
I had to stop. It was like
Mm,
making me kind of sad. I don't know. I just like need to stop watching it. But it's basically like she's a matchmaker
mm,
and there's just so much about like how we're formulating relationships. And I was just like, God, the things people focus on and get married, like the whys, like someone checks a box or someone makes my family feel some kind of way about who I am because they're this place in their career, right? And it's what you're saying. We've all just been so socialized to dehumanize one another. And the reason I started watching it is I watched the director talking about how people were like, not whoever the director's name is, glorifying dating broke men in this economy. And she was like, it really makes me sad that someone would say that about this beautiful character that I've constructed and, minimize him to the broke boy, and it's
Mm,
just, it's like,
mhm,
okay to make people these objects that whatever they are or not, I use to
mhm,
um, glorify my sense of self that I don't have internally, or it minimizes my sense of self, right? Like I just was like, oh, this hurts my heart. I gotta stop watching. But it was an interesting commentary on the way that we experience relationships
mm.
that are socialized too.
Well, I guess like what's the and I'm asking even like for myself too, it's like what's the day-to-day consideration here, when you because we're all guilty of it, getting swept up in it. We're all guilty of, dehumanizing other people, whether that's the negative way or the positive way. We all do it. No one listening is, not guilty of it. I'm not guilty of it. Not guilty, I mean. So it's like what's the day-to-day kind of self-awareness piece around this to pay attention to?
I mean, to me, and I feel like this is a little bit what I've been writing about, like understanding that these relationships are not sent to, like, nobody's sent to us by accident, right?
Mm,
And we don't get to keep people and we don't get to mold people. And every single person that we collide with is meant to show me something I'm meant to understand about me. And I think that it's just the complete recalibration of what we think we're doing with one another when we're relating to one another. And that it's like the energetic extraction that we've been operating under for so long, I think needs to die. Like, I extract a sense of self worth from this person, I extract a sense of safety from this dynamic. And I was talking to someone in that same group yesterday, and she was talking about, like, yeah, but like, what about the very human needs that we have from our partner, right? And again, me and the word needs. I'm like the with the word need. But what I'm starting to understand is what we all need to recalibrate to, in my opinion, is your needs will always be met. Like, source has got you in ways that you in your human mind cannot um conceptualize until you experience that that need is being met. But where our ego mind gets it wrong is, I need this particular person to meet
to meet
this
it.
particular need in this moment in the way that I decide that they need to. And that's where they become the pleasure object pacifier that I utilize and dehumanize to make myself more comfortable. Where if I say, I have a desire, are we in alignment with this desire, right? Is that something you could be on board with? And then they get to have free will, and we get to understand if we're in alignment with what our desires are relationally. But if that person can't meet that desire, then I understand whatever I truly need, I will either be able to meet that need myself, or source will send in all kinds of reinforcements in the form of various angels that are what I wouldn't have thought would be there. But it's this thing of like, we don't get to direct other people in the way that we have been attempting to, because the thing is, it's just not working anyway.
What would you say is I guess, the kind of like prompt around as we're seeing this more collectively?
Mhm.
Because I think this idea of dehumanizing is so prevalent right now in general.
Mhm.
What would you say? Like, how do you take the prompt that you just spoke through in the personal, individual, relational realm and then bring it out to more of the collective realm?
Yeah. I think over and over, it's like, what has this come to teach me? Right.
Hmm.
And so it's like, oh, I can't remember his name right now. The man who was just assassinated. And I know there's all kinds of Charlie Kirk.
Oh,
Is that
Charlie
his
Kirk.
name?
Yeah.
Um, it's like we think things are happening in a vacuum.
Mm.
Nothing, I saw something a few weeks ago that I was like, ooh, that truth. Those moments where something hits you. And
Hmm.
it's like, if it's here, it's because God, source, whatever you believe in, signed off on it.
Mm.
Period. We believe we know what should be happening and in the order it should be happening. It's like, if Martin Luther King had not been assassinated when he was alive, he was not celebrated in the way that he was today, it wouldn't have set off certain events within the civil rights movement that are happening. And we have to understand we are seeing a very limited perspective of what is actually happening in the world. There's a way
Mhm.
that like everything that we're seeing is like, I just saw this, like the uproar in France, what we're seeing about
Oh yeah.
that is actually a very small percentage of what's going on. But like, there's actually the people are really rising in a way that's like unbelievably empowering when you see what's actually happening versus what we're being shown on the news, right?
Yeah.
And so, whatever the thing is, if we just sort of take it at face value, what we're being shown, we're really not in the space of the way I believe life is attempting to empower us. And if it's, it sort of circles back to what you were saying before. If all things are lessons that life would have us learn, what is Source attempting to teach us about the way we are interacting with human animals right now?
Mm.
What I am seeing is like how quickly we like begin to dehumanize people that don't think the same way that I do, or that we can sort of celebrate when any human being for any reason is murdered in front of his children. To me, that's like, I actually don't care what you believe. I don't care if you were a Klan member your whole life. I'm never like, I was that person when Saddam Hussein was murdered. That's like, I don't know. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. I'm never going to celebrate when someone is murdered. That's just not what I believe is in alignment with who I want to be. And I I think that there are moments where it's like we have really let the tribalism get out of control. And I think we are being asked to really say, like, if whatever is the outcome we want collectively, what is the path we need to take to get there? Because this
Mm.
whole divide and conquer thing, it's just not serving us. And so
It's also
what
played out. We've done it a million times. We know how that story ends. Like,
yes,
this is not new.
exactly.
And it's a playbook for a reason. Like, the ones that are controlling and calling the shots from above know this playbook well. It's been
Exactly.
passed down for centuries to control and divide and conquer. I mean, this is not new. Like, we're just the new set of pawns, but
Mm,
it's same fucking song and dance that's been used. That's the part for me, is like just watching it all and standing back 30,000 feet and just being like, y'all, look at what is going on. Like, what you think, this is me going back to the Altadena thing again, right? It's very similar.
mhm.
It's like, we want accountability. You're not getting it. So stop trying to force it out of the people who are actually calling the shots, and look around and say, we need to come together as neighbors.
Mm,
No one is coming to save us. Quite the opposite. They're actually all the ones that are controlling what is happening right now. They want us to hate each other. They want us to have tribalism. They want us. It serves their purpose. It keeps them rich. It keeps them in power. Like, it's the same shit in a micro way with the fires in January, what I was talking about. Like, I need to look at my neighbors. A lot of those neighbors on my street didn't think like me. I didn't give a
mm,
shit in that moment. I just knew they needed to get the fuck out of their houses. Do you think I cared who they voted for? Do you think I cared? No, I didn't give a
yeah,
shit. The
yeah,
guy that was two doors down to me was nothing but like a crotchety old man that was rude all the time. Do you think that mattered? No. I made sure him and his wife were fucking out, right? Like, we called around, we checked. Like, I didn't
mm,
care in that moment. And I think it's like, that's the plot that we've lost, is like, who cares? Like, why do we get to decide that some people are worthy of being saved from a fire and some people need to perish? Like, we don't. Well, at least I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the person
exactly.
that says, because that guy was a crotchety old man and doesn't believe what I believe, he needs to die in this fire. Because that's not the kind of person that I want to be. So a lot of us are not looking at it. I'm talking about the fire right now, and that seems really real and it seems really personal. And so there's something in that where I'm sure a lot of people will be like, well, of course I wouldn't let that man die. Well, what I'm
But
talking
would
about
you
is
let
personal,
Charlie
but
Kirk
that's right.
die?
That's right. And
But
I
would you
don't
let a
fucking agree.
30-year-old man who has opinions that I'm
I
sure if
don't
we
want him
looked
to
back at
die.
ourselves throughout periods of history, we have not been the highest versions of ourselves. And furthermore, I don't even care. It's to your
I don't
point. I
care. If he
still
was
don't
my
want him to die.
neighbor, I would have gotten him and his kids and his wife out. I don't give a shit. I
Exactly.
don't care about all the back end. I don't care that she's probably in it with Trump. I don't care. I don't care. He's a human, right? So I think it's like, that's the part that I'm like really struggling with right now. And we talked about this in the very beginning before you and I got on. I was like, I have just not been on social media at all because
Mm,
I feel so ick about the way everybody is showing up right now, with the pitchforks online. And it just, maybe that's where that emotion came from earlier. It's like there's something about it that's activating in me, maybe some trauma from that fire, where I'm like, and none of it fucking matters. Just save them from the fire. None of it fucking matters, you guys, at the end of the day, you know? Um, Man, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that tremendous loss in whatever form that takes brings us back to our humanity on a visceral level. You know,
Yeah,
we've talked about this. Like you lose someone or something that you just are all of a sudden like all of this is just so irrelevant.
it's so
And
relevant. I know.
I think life is going to humble us, and it's a gift when we are open to seeing like all of this is to teach us about like who we are meant to become right now. But yeah, all of these things that we are so certain, like our red jerseys and our blue jerseys and like my team and it's all so irrelevant ultimately.
Everyone's out there causing harm. That's the other thing. It's like, well, what he was saying was causing, people of color harm. And it's like, okay, all of that can be true, but everybody's out there causing harm. That's the thing. Like me causing somebody else harm, to your point with the eye for an eye, it's that's not changing it. It's not helping us evolve to where we want to evolve.
And
It's playing
frankly,
exactly right into it.
it's lazy. Like,
Mm,
I'm just gonna, like, say the difficult truth. It is so much easier to just villainize someone and decide that they're disposable people than
mm,
it is to get into the nuance and the curiosity
mm,
and conversations and get a little closer. It's lazy. I'm sorry, but we have just gotten so, and that to
mm.
me is the privilege of like I don't have
Yeah,
to like
feels
care
better.
about that person's humanity. It feels like a sedation of, and it hurts all of us. It does. Like our kids are like, is everything okay? Are there adults like running the world? Like, no, sweetie, there aren't because we need to be right and we need our
Mm,
team to win. And it's just like we gotta pull up our big kid pants and start saying, like, who do we want to be, you know?
mm. Well,
Well,
who do we want to be? As usual, we've covered 25 topics
small
today.
question. Who do we want to be as a human race? We're like, what are we going to talk about? Who we want to be as a human race?
God. I'm trying to be too heavy, y'all, but
Big times call for large topics, apparently.
this is where we go. Well,
Mm.
I appreciate you as always being a sounding board and also reminding me to put on my big kick pants.
Listen, we're all doing the best we can. And please know, Vanessa and I aren't saying this is easy for any of us because we
Oh
are
my
all
God.
human and we're all
Yes.
activated and we're all like, is it eclipse season still? Because what the And I think like the work is like, yes, we get to get activated and have grace for ourselves and say, I'm taking a deep breath and remembering who I want to be. And that's the work for all of us,
Hmm. Who do I want to be? That's it. All right.